Now, I know that you talk a lot about amputate to elevate, and that's kind of, and it makes sense to me. Like when you said it, it just resonated right away because there's things that don't serve us, right? So, how do you go about helping others amputate to elevate?
Now, people are afraid to cut what no longer serves them. And I teach them how to amputate with intention. It's not a bad thing. There's some things in your life, personally and professionally, that you've been holding on to that you should have released 10 years ago. You're staying at that same job and you know that you're just staying there for the paycheck. You've already quietly quit. So why are you still there? You need to amputate that. And of course, yes, that's going to hurt. Amputations are not fun. They hurt. And you're probably going to have some phantom pain after the cut's over with, reminding you of a situation that's no longer accessible to you. But that doesn't mean you don't go through that process. But I can assure you on the other side of it is that you're lighter and that you've identified things that are going to elevate you.
Hi, I'm Christy Honeycutt. I'm your host for Inside the C-Suite, where execs get real about leadership, impact, and what truly drives high-stake decisions. I am really excited to have on the show today John Register. So John is a two-time Paralympian and U.S. Army combat veteran. If you guys see me looking, it's because he's got lots of accolades. He's a Hall of Famer and one of the world's top 50 leadership speakers. He guides leaders in amputating limitations. I'm so excited, John, to have you on the show today. Where are you joining us from?
I am in my home. Can you believe it? In Colorado Springs, Colorado, America's mountain sits right outside our door, where Kathy Lee Bates penned the words to America the Beautiful. I am so honored to be on your show, Inside the C-Suite.
You know, John, we met on LinkedIn, and I was just telling you this a little bit before we jumped on, and I thought your videos were not real because you have such a great voice and just such a great presence. I thought there's no way this is authentic. And then I went and kind of scoured and over your profile and different things, and it's you,
It's
100%.
me. Yeah. Not AI at the moment, you know. So
Authentic, 100%.
we're 100% authentic. That's where I live.
I love it. Well, I gave a very brief overview of who you are, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience so I don't miss anything.
Christy, thank you. Have you ever had a situation where it was tough for you to make a decision? You were uncertain in the moment and you just felt paralyzed to make it.
I'm a
And
Libra,
then
so every day.
you finally make it and you say, this is going to be better. I just released it. I've cut it away. And you get to the other side and you're in deeper. It's like out of the frying pan into the fire.
Mm.
You're no longer the expert. You're beginning again. And that's where I live to help folks. And we can kind of get into some of that of how I do that. But for the overall archering, kind of 30-second intro, I was a world-class athlete, 3-time All-American, ran track for the University of Arkansas. Then I went to the Army, combat Army veteran, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Came back and ran track for the Army and was training for my third Olympic trials in the 400-meter hurdles. And I misstepped a hurdle. I dislocated my left knee, severed the artery behind my kneecap. And 7 days later, I had the choice to keep my leg, use a walker or a wheelchair for the rest of my life, or undergo an amputation and use a prosthetic for the rest of my life. So I chose door number 2 and became an amputee. Ended my time in the service in the military, but started working for the military's Community and Family Support Center. At the same time, started working with those that were in the World Class Athlete Program to help them get their dreams to come true and make Olympic teams. But at the same time, I was training. I started swimming for physical therapy, get myself back in shape, found out about the Paralympic Games, and went to the Paralympic Games 27 months post my amputation in swimming. Saw athletes running on the track with artificial legs. I said, I got to get one of those things. Returned to the track, went back to the discipline of the long jump, which was one of my All-American honors. I also qualified for the Olympic trials in the long jump as well. And wound up getting the silver medal, winning the silver medal in Sydney, Australia, just 4 years after relearning how to run again. And
Mm.
that kind of culminated my track and field experience, my athletic experience. I was hanging the spikes up, and I saw my bib number from the 2000 and Paralympic Games in Sydney, and it said 2004. So maybe that was a sign to go to 2004. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. But what it does signify is something that's near and dear to my heart. And that is, even though you're done, make the pathway for someone else to get there.
Mm.
I went to the 2004, I went to the 2002 championships in Lille, France, finished up 4th, and earned a spot for another American to make the team. I wouldn't be on the team, but I would earn a spot for another person. So that really helped understand kind of who I am, what I'm about, and we can get into some of the other things that I've built along the way.
Well, I got goosebumps, so I know that you're woo. I'm woo. Goosebumps means right time, right place, right? But what an amazing story. Like, I cannot wait to hear what you're going to say next. Like, that is so, to think that you went and did that and you selfishly did it again for someone else to go. And not selfishly, unselfishly did that. Like, you're all about, you embody veteran. Like you
Mhm.
do. And I know I told you this, but I think veterans do it better than anybody else. I'm a military brat, so I totally get it. So what happened then?
Uh, I got back and I got recruited by the United States Olympic Committee, U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, was U.S. Olympic Committee at the time, and I moved the family from Virginia to Colorado Springs. We've been here for 21 years, and I began a program, founded a program called the Paralympic Military Sport Program. It's a program that worked with wounded veterans to use sports as a tool for their rehabilitation. Now, I don't take credit for the overall program itself because I got the idea from Sir Ludwig Gutmann, who began Paralympic Games in 1948 for injured veterans coming out of World War II. But he was primarily interested in spinal cord injuries. That was his work, to get people back healthy and active. And he wasn't really concerned with amputations and those things because his focus was on paralysis. So I expanded it to our newly injured veterans, and that program, it really took off. And so I was going on a kind of a triage. I was go with triage. I would go to 3 different hospitals. I would go to Walter Reed on one day, and I'd be at Brooke Army Medical Center another day, and I'd be at Balboa Hospital all across the country in San Diego on another day. And I would do that loop about twice a month to try to get veterans out of that bed and into these Paralympic style sport programs. Got some funding for it in 2007 for the DoD, Department of Defense, and the VA side of the house. So $5 million for the DoD, 10 million for the veterans, and that turned into a train the trainer model program, and
Right.
all of that turned into what runs now as the Department of Defense runs Warrior Games. So that turned into Warrior Games. And I think 2015, Prince Harry started Invictus Games. So both of those two events grew out of the program that I had begun. And so we see that, all of us have a pathway. And if we're just willing to walk in the pathway that's been created for us to walk, we can have some extraordinary results. The full circle moment for me is that coming up this weekend, Warrior Games is back in Colorado Springs, and I'm a color commentator for some of the events, which is kind of cool, right? So it's kind
I
of
think
full
it's
circle moment.
amazing.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to sit back and meditate on that one. That's beautiful. You said when we walk the path and kind of come to where we're looking, and I can't say it as eloquently as you just did, but what about the average person out there? So I selfishly look at these podcasts as an opportunity for me to learn from really smart people like yourself and inspirational people like yourself. So if I find myself or someone listening finds herself in this situation, what guidance would you have for them to identify that that's their path?
Yeah, I think that the misconception is that you say the average person, and I
Mm.
see myself as the average person, right? I see myself as, this was just the path that was laid out for me, and instead of trying to be somebody else or chase somebody else's dream, I just settled into what God had placed before me. And I think there's so many people that are out there looking for, oh, I see what she's doing. I want to do that too. I see what he's doing. I want to go over there. When we're
Yeah.
not comfortable or understanding the pathway that's for us, because we have so much competing for our attention
Mm.
that we're not attuned to what we have been designed to do. I mean, think about it. Each one of us has a fingerprint that's different than everybody else. Hair follicles are different than everybody else. All of us that are designed specifically for a purpose, and most of us are out there chasing somebody else's dream.
No, 100%.
Right. So we
That
need
was
to
spot
really,
on.
yeah, in my opinion, is let's start there, because when we understand what we were designed for, and purpose really is not something that we do. Purpose is what other people do because we were in the room. It's the residue that's left in others because we were there. And so
Mm,
that's what we have to begin to understand. So if you're on purpose, then you are creating residue, you are creating echo moments, you are creating something in somebody else, not necessarily for yourself. So that's, I think, is what I would offer, is first start at the baseline and understanding you are designed specifically unique for a purpose to help other people release in their world.
wow. I'm getting a keynote speaking engagement right here. I hope the audience is enjoying it. I'm just blown away. I cannot wait to come hear you speak live. I mean, outside of this, obviously. So I know that you're super passionate about several things, and I am most impressed with you. Now, I know that you talk a lot about amputate to elevate, and that's and it makes sense to me. Like when you said it, it just resonated right away because there's things that don't serve us, right? So, how do you go about helping others amputate to elevate?
Yeah,
Tell us
that's
about your
great.
methodology.
So I'll set it up by saying I had to amputate something too, right? So I'm an amputee, but I had to amputate something. I had to amputate a very well-known, powerful, one of the GOAT speakers, saying that that's too sharp. People aren't going to identify with that because it hurts, and we don't want to make it more, easy for people, the pill for people to swallow. And I thought about it for a weekend, and I said, that's the message I've been given. You
Mm,
can't say it because you're not an amputee. I can say it because I am. And I understand that there is something I had to shed. So I had to shed that mindset that I had to be like everybody else. I'm that fingerprint, I'm that DNA. So I lean into it now, and it's showing up really prevalent in this moment, in this time that we're in, because people are paralyzed, and we call it uncertainty. We don't know what the next move is to make. And so we have to begin to shed some of those things. Most people are afraid to cut what no longer serves them. And I teach them how to amputate with intention. It's not a bad thing. Pruning is not a bad thing. It's just that you probably listening right now know there's some things in your life, personally and professionally, that you've been holding on to that you should have released 10 years ago. You're staying at that same job, and you know that you're just staying there for the paycheck. You've already quietly quit. So why are you still there? You need to amputate that. And of course, yes, that's going to hurt. Amputations are not fun. They hurt. And you're probably going to have some phantom pain after the cut's over with, reminding you of some situation that's no longer accessible to you. But that doesn't mean you don't go through that process. And I can assure you, on the other side of it is that you're lighter, and that
mm.
you've identified things that are going to elevate you, and you're going to feel more free to do the things that you were designed and called to do. But you got to get through that piece first. And that's what I help people walk through that process. And I do it with what I call the 3R model, 3R resilience action model. And I'll just give it to you really quickly. The
Yes,
first
please.
R is the reckoning moment. That's the first
Okay.
hurdle. The reckoning moment is realized when we understand we do not get back what we desire to have back when some type of trauma has impacted our life. Most people it'll come out like this: man, I just wish things would go back to normal. Can't we just go back to the way it used to be? Why do we got to change now? Anytime you hear those words from yourself or from your team, you're in the reckoning moment. So we have to begin to amputate that. We got to let go of that mindset. And there's a lot of grief that goes along with it, because if I lose this, if I've taken it from me, it's going to be a loss, and I have to grieve what no longer is accessible to me. So once I've hurdled that, now I'm into the revision. The revision is hurdled when we actually make a commitment to the new vision. I'm no longer in the reckoning, so now I'm free to make other visions. So we need to get a lot of people around us who are not afraid for the new vision. So we can incubate stuff. We can test the models. We can put spaghetti on the wall and just see what sticks. We're not in any inhibition about holding ourselves back, but the three forces that will hold us back.
Mm.
Other people believing for us what we can or cannot do, which is based on what they believe they could or could not do if they were in our situation. Society is the second one. Society will dictate and press upon us very harshly sometimes what is acceptable. So, Captain Hook's above the wrist amputee got his arm bit off by TikTok the crocodile in the movie Peter Pan. He's scaring the Lost Boys. He's dark. He's mysterious. We don't like Captain Hook. But wait a minute. I just became an amputee.
Mm.
Society has told me that I'm the negative. I'm to be afraid. I'm the one that people need to be afraid of. I'm an amputee. Am I now Captain Hook? Am I Barbosa? In Johnny Depp's film, The
You're
Pirates
taking
of the
it way
Caribbean?
back.
So we have these one-legged individuals, and they're always dark, mysterious, and am I seeing that now? Am I assimilating that onto me? And because I'll do anything to stay in conformity with everybody else. I
Mm.
don't want to shift. I don't want to change. And finally, I've had the world's best hurdle coaches. The person that has to make a commitment to the new vision and make that commitment is me. Those hurdle coaches, none of them ever ran over a hurdle for me. I had to do that work. So we have to do our own work to actually attack the hurdles that are in our lives. And then finally, the hardest part of the model is the renewal.
Okay.
The renewal begins with a rebirth. The rebirth is hard because now that I made a commitment, what was previous is no longer accessible to me. It's gone. When the doctor amputated my left leg, I do not get my leg back. And that's a commitment. So let's talk about what happens when you make a commitment like that. Well, I don't know how to walk on an artificial leg. I've been walking 29 years of my life on two legs. I don't know how to walk on this artificial leg. I got to learn how to manipulate a wheelchair to a prosthetic appointment. I have to learn how to put on an artificial leg. I have to learn how to walk between the parallel bars, walk on a 4-bar walk across the hospital, walk on crutches, crutches to cane, cane to free walking to running, running to jumping, jumping to a Paralympic medal. That process took 7 years. So when we make that decision and make that commitment, we have to understand we're no longer the expert. We have to go through the vulnerability and give ourselves space and grace to grow. If we're able to do that, then we can come to the end and have a celebration. But the best leaders, after they celebrate, they know one thing is coming: another reckoning moment.
Mm.
They have to have their head up on a swivel looking for what's coming up next, getting their team around them. I heard one amazing leader say that what we need to amputate, we need to amputate the echo chambers that are around us, because we're just regurgitating the same old thing over and over again. And what does that mean? That means that we need to move on. All of us, we need to expand to have new thoughts, ideas with other folks, but we haven't built it because most of us won't build something that's going to replace us.
Yeah.
When we should be building things that are going to replace our job, and somebody should be building something that we're going to elevate into as well. But we don't. We hold on to it. So I'm not going to give you all the information. Why? Because I want to hold on to my job.
Mm.
And I'm operating out of a scarcity mindset instead of an abundant mindset. And that's how companies begin
I
to
love
fail.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, so that this executive, she not only said to do that to her boss, which you would know the company if I said the company name, everybody would know it. She said, I want to be, I'll be the first to leave. I've trained such and such a person. We all need to go because you need to think different. And we're all giving you the same answers that you had 3 years ago.
Yep.
Right.
No,
So
that's very mindful and self-aware of someone
very
to
so.
get that.
And
Yeah.
who does that?
Not the average
Not
person.
too many people do it. Not too many people do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no, I think it's interesting. And, you talk about walking through what you went through and having to make that decision of no return of losing your leg and then having to go through the challenges of walking again. John, I'm curious, what was that like for your spirit and for your family and for the people closest around you going through? Because I know with my partner, I feel right and I pick up on his energy. So, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah, it was tough. It was also liberating for them as well. And so Alice, my wife, held space for me, right? When I couldn't hold space for myself. And she would buffer people because I'm always trying to be on the telephone trying to calm other people down when I'm
Yep.
going through, right? And she just said, no more calls. He needs to heal. He needs to. So she ran that buffer for me. At the same time, here's this military spouse who was just let go, fired from her job. because she was gone too long taking care of me.
Wow.
So thank you for your service, ma'am. So there are leaders
Yes.
out there that do that, right? I don't care what happened to your husband. I don't care how much he served in the military. We need you here on this job. And then
Yeah.
they on July 4th, they wave the flag,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You see what I'm
Yes.
saying? So there's no knock on it. I'm just saying that they're out there like that. And so it's more, you just got your patriotism has to be more than a flag.
I agree
Right? It
100%.
has
I
to be
mean,
more than a flag.
it's funny because, and thank you. I know I've thanked you before, but thank you for your service. And I love when, I talk to veterans and they go, oh, but well, thank you for your service because you're military family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think people that haven't had exposure to that don't know what it's like to have somebody overseas fighting that you can't talk to and you can't see. And it's very limited and it's very hard and it's super scary,
Yeah,
when you
right.
go through all of that. And for you guys to go through that and then for you to have an injury and her to hold space for you. That was my favorite thing you said as a yogi was hold space for you so you could heal. That's so important. I think obviously you teach leadership skills and you teach people how to overcome their own parameters that they're holding themselves back. But it's nice to hear about the people that are around to support you as you go through it. Because I think oftentimes people, high potential individuals that I talk to can tend to, you would have taken all the calls had she not stepped up and held space for you. I feel like there's this, or I've seen kind of like, what am I trying to say? Almost like guardrails up, right? Like, oh no, I'm good. I've got it. Like there's no vulnerability. But it's nice to know that when you go through things that you've got that circle around you to protect and love on you.
Absolutely. And John Jr., well, I didn't have our daughter was hadn't been born at that time, but John Jr. did as well. I mean, he's here, he is 5 years old
No.
when he has this thing happen to his dad, right? And so he was there. And the unwritten things that he did for me was he just treated me as dad.
Awesome.
So he had questions, Dad, that's your new leg? Kind of trying to understand as a 5-year-old would. And
Mhm.
he's a profound young man at that time. He's now older, has his own family. We used to run after church. We would go down, we get out of church, and he would ask me to race him down to a little dry creek bed. It's about 100 yards away. And when he was 3 or 4 years old, he was, he's racing dad. Now I'm an Olympian, right? Been 3 times all. I've been to Olympic trials. So I'm messing with him, and he said, "I win." Yeah. So we had these great talks on the way back, right?
Mhm.
And I just answered all his questions. It was this really great little experience right after church. When I had the amputation, my leg was hurting. I couldn't run. I was on this weird contraption. I was on crutches. I didn't even know how to walk on this thing, let alone run. And he said, "Can we run down the creek?" And I said, "It pained me." I said, "I can't do that, son. I can't do it." So I feel like I was letting him down. And then he says, as he looks up at me and looks down at my artificial leg and looks back up at me and looks down at my leg and says, "Well, can we just walk down there?" And I realized in that moment, it was never about the race. It was about the relationship. And I think what we have lost in art is building relationships. How many times do the folks that you talk to and the people that are on the call and are listening right now, they want either AI or a bot, or how can I get the maximum number of contacts with the system that I have? I want that to build the relationship for me, not me doing it myself.
Yeah.
And that I'm not. It's not a knock. I get where we are. We want to scale. We want, it depends on what we're after. But my desire is to have true impact, to really understand that that person on the other phone, when you pick that phone up to call me, you're getting me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No one else. You're getting me. And I can't believe you picked the phone up. Well, they go through Jasmine, Mike.
We love
Jasmine.
Jasmine.
We love Jasmine. We go through Jasmine, but then we want to have that opportunity to talk and talk through what your needs are in real time. I don't want you talking to a chatbot or be like a virtual John, because I might not get it right.
You
I
know,
get it right 98% of the time, but that 2% could derail you.
You bring up a valid. I mean, we are living in the age of automation and AI
Yeah.
and technology is moving so fast, and
Yes.
I've found times, John, where my brain is just overloaded and it's just so much all the time. Like, I'm on 4 different social sites, and I told you I literally respond to every single person that messages me on LinkedIn, which can be kind of hard, but it's important to me, even if they're just getting like a thank you or namaste hands. It's important for me if someone took the time to reach out for me to even if they're saying congratulations, to just thank them for their time and for thinking of me. So I see AI and automation. My thought of it is use it for the things that the lower value tasks, right? So you can open up more bandwidth for relationship, right? Humans. But you bring a valid point, because the world that we're living in, I'm curious what your thought is that the younger generations coming up, I feel, have a deficiency in communicating, and in the relationship side, it's a little hard for them. Do you see a difference as you're going out and I almost said preaching because I feel like it's preaching, but I'm listening to your gospel. Do you find it different in the different generations of how they relate or what their trajectory is? Or do you think it's an
So
individual thing?
I don't think well, it's individual, but it's more in generational. And I believe that every generation has its own thing. And
For
so
sure.
what we begin to do is we compare what we did to somebody else's era of coming through. And so their era is just their era. So do we have some influence in that? Maybe so, but that's what they're growing up with. So I can't really compare the eras. They're going to have their own era of
Mhm.
they do and how they respond and that. The era before me was those that had gone through the Great Depression. And so they hoarded everything. They wanted to make sure you save your pennies and stuff because they didn't want to experience that drought like they did in the 30s, right? And now here we are 100 years post that, and time has marched on and moved forward, and now we have all this automation, and I think we need a governor on it, right? A governor because we can do so many things with it to help us with conversations and that. But if you don't have the depth of understanding why you're doing what you're doing, you can't get the depth from the AI source, right? So I know as a professional, as a speaker, I know what is just general things that the thing might say, right? But if I understand my positioning or my repositioning of what I want,
Mhm.
and I understand what that means, and here are the key words that I've been using in my copy, I can have it then redo my website, and it's not going to sound generic because it knows me. It knows all my stuff. My, absolutely. And so that is something that I'm always looking to try to elevate on, to give me a point of distinction in the marketplace and not just generic. So if you don't know it, you're going to get generic stuff, generic in, generic out. But if you can go deep 5, 6 levels, you're going to get something you're going to get something more specific to who you are.
You made me think of something. So the first time I used chatbot GPT, which I am a big chatbot fan, it was to write my boyfriend a poem. I'm like, let's see what this is all about. We're in the car, we're driving back from Austin on a trip, and I just pop it in and I'm like, right. And I just prompted a couple of things, and we almost peed ourselves laughing so hard. It was super accurate. Just from just the prompts, right? I was like, write my boyfriend a love poem. He has green eyes. He likes to, and we were laughing. I'm like, this is crazy. It could be used for good or evil.
It can. I mean, that's exactly right. Those are the easy ways. But now think about this, right? How it can really expand your business,
Absolutely.
right? So
Yep.
now we're talking about, okay, I just revised my book using chat, and I asked it to be 9 different types of editors
Mm.
at the highest level. I said, I want you to change the context of the book. It's already been written. Here's what it looks like. I just want you to here's what I want you to do for the different questions I want from my leadership team after it's over with. And so it wrote those 10 power stories over again in a revised edition. So I just loaded it. And so I did the same thing with, I want you to make the second book like the first book. So I have 10 more power stories that go in. And it has a similar type style. That one's just about put to bed now as well. And then I have a third one that's not that at all. It's going to be one on case studies from all the leaders that I've interviewed. So that's the third one. And then I can take all three of those and say, okay, here's the transcript of each one of these chapters. I want you, I'm about to go to Hong Kong. I'll write this in Chinese, write this in Japanese, write this in Korean, write this in Vietnamese. And now I got a whole book that's written for them in their language. And all I have to do is kind of pay somebody to go through it to make sure the translation came over. Because I
Yeah.
don't speak Taiwanese, but I can have the whole book translated that way. And people love reading and listening in their own language. So that's where
Yeah.
something might come in, where I read the book and instead of it saving it in English, it saves it in Vietnamese, it saves it in Chinese, it saves it, and now you're reading the book alongside with the thing, my voice, but it's speaking a different language to you. So that's where you
Love
can
to hear what that sounds like.
you can do it. I'm about to do my whole intro. My whole intro is just changed now. It's more the heroic style music, right? And
Mhm.
from going from the teacher to the guru is kind of more the brand, the refresh in the brand, because people that really don't see me as a keynote speaker anymore. They see me. Oh my gosh, we want to. Can you get in front of our leadership team? Because you've been a
Yeah.
CEO, you've been executive, you've run a $5 million organization, right? So they see that and what it comes out. So it's just not one way conversation I have with folks. It's
Yeah.
a two-way street, and I don't care whether you come up on stage or in the audience. I can take what you're saying and mix it back to the main point, or let's go off in a different direction. Oh, that's something I hadn't thought about before. Tell me a little bit more. Let's see how that relates to what we're talking about here. So that's a growth incubator, and just a regular keynote speaker just can't do that. Is if they're not versed in their material to the depth and can
Yeah,
align it to
exactly.
different things in their life, right? So that's where we really want to get to, I believe, as a quote unquote keynoter.
I've got to come see you at a keynote, and I've got some referrals for you big time because I think that you're just gonna resonate with so many people. You're just so authentic and lovely. And I've got one for you too with the AI, just so I like to play with all the different things. And so my latest frivolous purchase was the Meta glasses. And the
Yeah, right.
reason I tell you this is because I have a lot of different clients that speak different languages. So sometimes we have interpreters on. So one of them is Japanese, and I obviously don't speak Japanese, and I desperately want to know what they're talking about. So I'm in a meeting and I download a Japanese translation app with a room full of CEOs, and I wasn't on mute and they heard it in English. And I go, I'm so sorry. I just really want to be. And everybody laughed and gave me grace. But I got the glasses. So the glasses actually translate Spanish, French, and English. And so I'm hoping, Meta, if you're listening, I really, really want you to get Japanese because and I think about that with you because you talked about relationship. Think about how we can use technology for good to like
Right,
build relationships,
right.
right? And there's so many different cultural nuances. You're never going to replace a human. You're never going to replace relationship. And I love what you have to say and what you bring to the world, John. Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you do. I'm just curious before we end, if is there anything that you'd like to share that you haven't shared with the audience? You want to leave us a golden nugget?
I'm not sure I need golden nuggets, but think it's what I'm finding right now in this season that we're in is people are paralyzed to make a decision.
Yeah.
And so many people are waiting for you to show up to make that decision. And we're holding back and saying, well, I just don't know. Times are so uncertain right now.
Mhm.
Well, we never had certainty. We've always had to work inside of that space of uncertainty and cause certainty to happen. So how do you do that? I think it's the people that you have around you that are not going to be an echo chamber to you. So if you're only
Yes.
homogenous, you're going to be in an echo chamber for the most part. I mean, just because everybody thinks the same way. That's why
Yes.
diversity is so important,
It's
because
huge.
you have different minds, different ways to think, different markets that can open up. If you're only homogenous, then you're thinking for that other group, and they might not be thinking the same way, right? So you have to figure that thing out. So the piece of that is I never look back, right? I never look backwards to go forward. But I'm going to do it for this one segment. Just for a teaching point, teachable point. And stop me if I've said this before. There were three things I believe that cost me the gold medal because of what I did not know. No fault for anybody else. I just didn't know it. They didn't know it. They wouldn't have been able to know it. The first was I became an above the knee amputee and not a through the knee amputee. A through the knee amputee can weight bear on the bottom portion of their stump. They put a pad down there of the skin, and you can bear. I became an above the knee amputee, which I don't have the head of the femur, which means I weight bear the top portion of the leg under the ischium bone. When you're talking about running and sprinting, there are three elements that make up that: the stride length, the stride frequency, and the force you can put into the ground.
Hmm.
Well, I couldn't put enough force to the ground because I'm putting that force in from the hip. My other competitors were putting that force in from the knee because they had their knee still
The
intact,
hip.
the hip, the knee. So they were able to run faster. And so I knew I couldn't catch them in 100 meters. I finished up fifth in both 100 and 200, but I wasn't going to be able to catch them. There's just no way. It was going to be a physical impossibility. I don't care how much I trained, how fast I got. I could have made the race close, but they just couldn't outrun me. But in the jump, they were amputees who became long jumpers. I was a long jumper who became an amputee.
Hmm.
I knew how to jump. And I knew that if I get certain enough speed, I'm going to be on that medal podium because I know how to jump. I was watching them, they don't know how to jump. So, and lo and behold, I did. I wound up getting, silver on that. But was that amputation that I had, the 4.5 inches, I won silver, not gold? There was a knee unit I had. It had an extension stopper. An extension stop caused the leg not to go into hyperextension. Well, I didn't have that on there. The process didn't tell me about that. And I was blowing the guts out of the back of the thing because my leg was always going to hyperextension and pulling the piston out the back and causing oil to go all over the place. So we send it back and bring it back again. I blow it out again, send it back, bring it back and blow it out again. The third time I send it back, they're like, why aren't you using the extension stop? I was like, the what? So was that time I lost training
Hmm.
equal to the 4.5 inches I won silver, not gold. And then finally, viscosity in the knee, the density of oil. When I got to Sydney, I was overpowering my leg. I was so fast that my leg would not keep up with me. It was like a governor was on my leg.
Mm.
My prosthetist saw it, said, oh, you just need a leg with a knee unit with more viscosity. I said, no, I still want to have children with my wife. I said, no, idiot. We need to get you another unit. So they flew a unit over with more density of oil in it. And I wound up putting it on. And now I was flying down the long jump runway. I was flying down for the 100 meters.
Mm.
And I was like, man, if I just had this thing 3 weeks earlier, because it put me in a dilemma. I'm taking so much speed down the runway now. I don't know if my real leg's going to be able to handle the jump, or should I stay with the governor because I know it can handle that jump. And so I went with door number one and took the higher leg because I would always had a regret and always been thinking about what if I would have
What if?
just the what if. So I said I'm not going to have the what if. I'm going to put the leg on. We're going to go. And I wound up winning silver. So to fast forward that to right now, to kind of make the point what I wanted to make is that we're in rooms and we don't even know the answers to the questions that we're putting out there, and everything is always uncertain. So you have to put people in the room around you enough to begin asking so many questions that uncertainty becomes certain.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how to do it, but you got to put the people in the room. You have to bake on it. You gotta let folks let their ideas come.
Hmm.
And that's where we're at. And so that's what I would offer to your listening audience.
Well, I certainly am going to ushering you into some people that need to talk to you, but I am so grateful for your time. I'm so grateful for everything that God has blessed you with, that you get to
Thanks,
bless us
Christy.
with. So thank you for that. And on behalf of our community that you are definitely a part of, thank you for all the work that you're doing, especially within diversity of thought, is it's so important in everything we do. How would you like our listeners to connect with you or reach out? I know you're a big LinkedIn guy, but is there anything else?
LinkedIn is always great. So LinkedIn, just follow me on LinkedIn. You can see me. You can get that. I put on this, and you see on my name tag here is Beehive. So johnregister.beehiiv. Connect with us there. So we're building community over there. So executive leadership. Every Saturday we have three insights we learned from an executive that was on the podcast. So just go check that out. It's a free community, so just get in there. We do have once a month, I do a group training session that is behind a paywall. So just to be upfront about that, but it's pretty nominal. It's just, I believe people have to have skin in the game or else they don't appreciate everything. So that's the reason that we have, there's a small fee for that. And then, yeah, the decision commander, keynote speaker, sage, whatever you want, if you have an event that's coming up, I would love to be considered for that.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be putting your name forward for sure. Audience, you heard it here from John Register. He's the superhero veteran. Love it. Love what you're doing for the community. So like, subscribe, follow, and go connect with this gentleman and get him some speaking engagements at your organization. I promise you won't regret it. Ciao.